Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started, and I think we probably have a few more people that'll hop on, but don't want to take up more time than necessary. We are excited to be joined this morning by our friends at FiVerity, who, of course, you may remember joined us at last year's convention, and we look forward to seeing again this year. But certainly fraud continues to be top of mind for everyone, and we will continue to look for opportunities to bring you resources and tools to support your efforts to combat that. So we're really excited to be joined this morning by a big group from FiVerity who are going to tell us a little bit more about what they can bring to our team and to the Vermont credit unions, to the New England credit unions, to help, combat fraud and the continuous, progression in that space. So we're really excited to see the team from FiVerity, and I'm going to hand it over to them. And then certainly at the end, we'll leave some time if there are any questions. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have thoughts, but we will leave time at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks again for everyone for joining. We really appreciate the time. My name is Jacques Penico. I head up the partnerships and marketing side of things here at FiVerity. I'm joined today in our presentation and more specifically our demo with our VP of product who runs all things technical, Nalab Ohol. I want to start by just quickly setting the stage for what this session is, what we hope each of you walk away with. We have partnerships and are in the process of setting up networks across most of the Northeast banking communities, both on the credit union side as well as community banking. So we have partnerships with the CCUA, Mass Bankers Association, New Hampshire, Vermont Bankers Association, all have partnerships in place, and we are actively presenting the same way that we are presenting here today for the Association of Vermont Credit Unions. I mentioned that specifically because while we are going to be discussing intelligence sharing and collaboration specific to this association and these community members, I think it's important to call out that all of the intelligence that is shared between each of you is also applied and brought in from others participating in the program and participating in the platform. So you will see in the demo the specific insights that you will get across Vermont credit unions, but we will also touch on the greater platform and all of the information that creates this collective defense against fraud, because as we know, they're all sharing information. There's an open marketplace, and the only way for us to actually get in front of it and become more proactive is by sharing information as well. So what we'll show today is how institutions are becoming coordinated, not just externally, but also internally across their systems and teams, and how they're doing it in real time. Importantly, it's how this is enabled by different technology than we've done previously, others in the space have done. It's one that allows intelligence to be shared automatically and securely without heavy IT lift, and embeds directly into your existing workflows. So big emphasis on actual impact. It's not just collaboration for the sake of collaboration. It's about hitting goals and up-leveling your fraud programs. So the goal here is pretty simple. By the end, we're hoping that you have a clear sense of how this works and what it would look like in your environment with your teams, and whether or not it makes sense to participate today versus not being one of the first movers within the Vermont credit space, but later down the road. So we have an hour allotted to make sure that we have plenty of time to answer any questions and get feedback. We hope this is interactive and you guys have a voice at the table here. But we also understand that in a group setting, we may not be able to dive into the specifics as far as the challenges or active initiatives that we may be able to support as part of this. So we're happy to schedule follow-up one-on-ones to have that deeper dive. So looking at the fraud landscape to kick things off here at a high level, what we are all dealing with is this shift in how fraud operates. It's no longer isolated. It is coordinated. It is industrialized. We consistently see organized groups now probing for gaps across the ecosystem, across channels, products, and institutions. And we see them, once they find something that works, they're able to scale it very quickly and repeat over and over. So we see this both on specific identities and elements of identities or accounts that are taken over, or maybe synthetic identities, which is continues to rise. But as well as more of the behavioral outcomes, the tactics that they're using. So for example, fraudsters will purchase stolen data within a specific region, and they'll send out scam messages to everyone within that database, pretending to be local financial institutions that person may be likely to be a member at. And this has components of both being a tactical pattern, as well as showcasing specific elements like IP address or the routing information used. And that'll be consistent across that scale. And they'll use it in bursts across multiple targets. And then once the sort of the area starts to adapt and makes the changes, they move on to something else. And that ends up being the game of whack-a-mole that everyone talks about, that it constantly feels like when it comes to fraud these days. And before we go further, I don't have a polling set up for this meeting, so feel free to post it in the chat, or if you want to just sort of say it to yourself in your head, totally fine as well. But I want to get an understanding of what things look like for the group here, just from your perspective. Where are you feeling the most pressure? What does it look like from a fraud for your institution? And most of the time what we're seeing is sort of a combination of A, B, and C, but we've also had conversations where people aren't seeing a rise of fraud, and they feel like they've got a pretty good grasp of things. So if that's the answer, that's totally okay as well, and we'll save the opportunity to work together for a later time, or hopefully not at all if you don't end up seeing that problem. So I'll just take a minute here to give people a chance to sort of either think through this a little bit, or if you can post in the comments, that would be great. So yeah, the results that we typically see is, as I mentioned, a little bit of combination of those first three. But what comes up is this feeling of being in a reactive position. So working alerts as they come in, pulling data from multiple systems, trying to piece together what's actually happening, each alert at a time, or each case at a time. And while that's happening, as I mentioned, fraud is moving faster than they are able to adapt, and it becomes really difficult to coordinate internally, let alone across institutions, based off of the previous tactics or previous ways that information sharing has been approached. So implementing a shared defense via real-time sharing has been something, obviously, I'm sure everyone knows that the industry has strived for quite a while now. We see a lot of efforts put in to consortiums or roundtables, bulletins, going to conferences and listening to the latest and greatest that people had seen over the previous 6 months or a year. And the question that we get all of the time at FiVerity is what makes this attempt different? What makes it more impactful? And so with that, I want to hand it over onto the technical side of the house to really speak to some of the breakthroughs that we've seen over the last year to 8 months to a year, from a technical side that really enables this program to be successful. So Nalab, if you want to
Yeah.
take the angle. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. just looking at the technical landscape and going into a little bit of details here, what's changed and what's making a different approach possible comes down to a few different breakthroughs that I can see here. First is the ability to bring signals together across systems and teams without heavy integration or sensitive data being stored persistently in FiVerity's environment. One of the things that we constantly run up against is the handling of PII, compliant and safe handling of the data, customer information being, as we see in the market, over leveraged. Our technology removes all of those concerns and keeps most of the sensitive data with credit unions. It leaves all of that information in your environment. All we do is we enrich that data from our existing from our technology. The other thing is mapping the behavior of these different activities into patterns, what we call them as typologies and motives, where typologies are this larger category of fraud behavior that can be standardized. Motives are repeatable patterns from attributes and data that result into these typologies being formed. So you're not only identifying how a fraud operates, but it also shows not where it shows up, it captures the overall behavior of the fraud as well. And then the third thing is doing this in a way that's more secure and compliant, like I said earlier, without moving sensitive data between the two institutions and across institutions as well, and using really that for enhanced workflows, for creating these next best actions that can help investigators come to a decision quickly, automating those processes, and at the same time, any downstream effect where we see a lot of challenges is fraud to BSA handoffs. So making sure those handoffs are consistent, and then when it is handed off to BSA teams, downstream effects such as filing SARs can be simplified, and I'll go over that in the demo as well. So all to say this is to operationalize all of these different processes so that intelligence doesn't sit in a report somewhere. It's actually driving response and prevention in real time for your organization.
Yeah, so the example that I typically like to share here to help the understanding is where a typical approach to sort of understanding what's happening outside of your institution may be looking at a FinCEN bulletin and reviewing with the team, like, okay, this is the new tactic that we're seeing or is being seen across the industry. How are we handling it? Are we set up for it? Are we getting in front of it as best we can? That, if you're good, that may happen once a quarter. The most of the people that we speak to, that happens on an annual basis. What we're doing from a technology standpoint is now able to take that information, not just from a regulatory body like FinCEN, but from your peers, and we're able to map it to the specific patterns and tactics that are being used and prevent it from happening to you. So it's really about stopping the scale. It's not about stopping it before it ever happens at all across the industry, but what it does is after it occurs once, we stop that and slow down the spread of that tactic or that identity elements, account elements of being used. And that reduces the ROI for the fraudsters. So from a social impact standpoint, it also potentially allows us as an industry to have less money be put into fraud because the ROI is reduced and that scalability is reduced for the fraudsters. Yeah, Nalav, you talk through a little bit of what this looks like?
Yeah. What all of that, what we talked about, enables is a unified intelligence layer that sits across your existing environment. What it does is it connects signals across multiple systems, structures them into patterns, as we talked about earlier, and makes that intelligence available in real time. Both internally and across your teams, and externally across participating institutions. So this is where collaboration extends from not only having that within your teams, where sometimes your teams can also be structured, it's siloed, but also enables outside collaboration, patterns that similar institutions might be seeing or similar patterns that other institutions might be seeing and experiencing, that they are also operating in silos. So connecting them together is a huge benefit for both, for all institutions, those are involved. So instead of, like I said earlier, instead of working in silos, you're effectively operating as a part of a coordinated network.
Yeah, we get asked a lot, sort of like what providers do you play nice with? Who do you integrate with? I think it's worth highlighting, and Alab, I'll let you take this part, but highlighting sort of the concept that since we are embedding into your existing system, we are system agnostic. So anywhere where you have access to the data, we are able to integrate without any sort of third-party participation. It's just a matter of permissioning access to that, to the signals within the data, and we take it from there. But if you want to provide some more specific examples.
Yeah. Like to Jacques' point, I think the goal of the approach is to give complete power and ability for your organization to bring in all sorts of intelligence that you're currently either siloed or looking at in steps. So we would essentially bucket this down into a look back versus go forward. We connect with your existing database for an evaluation of your historical data, where the risk profile might be changing, where new fraud patterns might be surfaced, or new AML patterns will surface. Go forward will be applying them for not only understanding incoming fraud and stopping them and preventing them, but also using that information to apply to, if you have a system that generates alerts, for example, combining and ingesting those alerts. So we do this in a couple of ways. Like the Jacques' point, system agnostic, connect to the backend database. If there's an API, we ingest that API as well, or any file storage system that you may already have at your organization. So you do not have to move systems or change systems. Our technology is able to adapt to what you already have been working with.
Yeah, and this gets a little more technical over my head a bit, but I think from an IT perspective, what we've heard, people think of it as sort of an intelligence lake or an intelligence warehouse that is automatically applied to your existing workflows. Again, that is ingesting signals across your systems as well as peer participants. So it's pretty powerful in practice. And this ability, this is where things start to shift. So instead of looking at activity one alert at a time or one case at a time, as mentioned, participants are now able to see exposure across the institution based on the patterns that are happening elsewhere, essentially. And that move from reactive response to proactive defense, and helps move from having isolated investigations to really a coordinated plan that operates much more efficiently and effectively. So with that, rather than keeping things sort of at a high level, Nalab, if we can start to just walk through what this actually looks like within the platform, as you guys are watching and listening, there are a few areas that I would suggest sort of focusing on, or I would hope you would focus on, to really provide clarity and specificity to how the results come, both on a detection side, but also from that operational efficiency. So how signals come together across those systems, how shared patterns are identified and how alerts are grouped, and then how that translates into that coordinated, automated response and prevention that we enable here.
Right. Awesome. Can everybody see the screen? Is the font legible from your end, at least?
Yep. If I bring it full screen, I can see pretty well.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay. So let's walk through what all of this looks in practice. What you'll be seeing today is how intelligence moves from being something that you reference to, as opposed to something that actually drives decisions across your workflow. And we'll start with bringing in the data across from just looking at how the data is brought across from your different environments. Our technology enables you to provide a list of data assets that you'd want to connect to, looking at core banking, onboarding, digital activity, and enriching it with some external intelligence, as you can see on the right. But the key point is, again, like I said earlier, this happens within your environment, and you're applying an intelligence. You're not moving data anywhere. You're just applying intelligence directly where the decisions are made. So if I click on manage here, you can see some of these core banking credentials can quickly be turned on for your organizations, and all of the data assets and use cases supported by a core banking platform would be enabled for you as well. What this results into are insights, and then insights are essentially looking at what your portfolio represents. So looking at different types of investment scams, for example, synthetic identity detected within a region, looking at those supporting metrics, how many accounts have been flagged, how many pattern matches were there on SSNs, giving you the ability to look at all of these signals from across the community. We also show some high-risk alerts that we have identified over time. So in this case, a synthetic identity cluster has been detected within the community, and you can actually investigate that and look at some of the details, or just looking at overall impact of that customer, of that identity cluster in this case. But what this results into is the ability for you to look at different types of alert. These are not just individual cases or individual alerts. These are dependent on typologies that we have identified across the network, or typologies that are more relevant for your organization. So let's look at one of these alerts that we have created based on consolidating alerts from your current alert generating system, or there can be alerts that FiVerity might have identified and flagged based on any changing risk that we have observed. So if I'm looking at one of these alerts, or in this case, 14 cash deposits totaling or a little under 120K over 7 days, and structured below to evade any CTR thresholds. If I open an alert, it gives me the ability to look at a quick view to fast triage an alert. These alerts are then classified into different, like I said earlier, motifs, which are repeatable patterns. So multiple threshold deposit is a repeatable pattern. We have also noticed in this case a geographical distribution, and then funds have been moving rapidly across different environments. All of these results into this top typology on structuring that we are able to identify for you. From here, creating a case is easy. You can assign a case priority and assign it to one of your to yourself or anyone from your team. And what it shows is it builds up a case for you. Now, if that typology that we have identified through the alert is a shared typology, not only for your institution, but across institutions, you would see a few things here. You would see typologies being identified and a tag of how many other institutions are seeing the typology. You don't see the institution name here. You can see that institution, or you can work with those institutions if you initiate our joint investigation workflow through under 314B, which FiVerity is the association of. But on individual cases evaluation, you would see the overall typology, if there is a match across our network, how many institutions are flagged, how many total accounts are flagged, and what signals have been matched here. And then the motives, like I said earlier, a detailed view of all the motives that have been detected for that typology. This is where, again, the goal is not to go over individual cases, but to understand how specific typologies are trending, where losses might be concentrated, and how quickly they are being detected. So instead of reacting on like earlier isolated alerts, you're getting a structured view of actually what's happening. So once the case is also created here, you can see there are other, the open action workspace lets you to have the context available as you're creating the case. And these actions are ordered by the context that was pulled from these different data sources and from the network matching that we have identified. It then gives you the ability to have a guided workflow. So instead of deciding what to do next, the system is going to recommend you actions that you can take based on the pattern that we are seeing. So whether it is identifying verifying the identity, interviewing the customer, analyzing transactions, and especially in cases of shared typologies across different institutions, investigating a network match. So this is where it becomes a structured and consistent investigation, where we will show you information such as, where else we have seen this network, and you saw this earlier on pattern intelligence, going deeper into what these entity linkages look like, how many accounts are impacted, which of these belong to your institution, without having to sharing any of the sensitive data across institutions and on the customers as well. And then just from the institution specific evaluation, what can we do from an institution, from a collaboration standpoint. So really giving you the ability to then talk to the entire community, or collaborate with the entire community on these fraud cases. You can also escalate a case to a BSA agent. So this is where our SAR filing workflow is extremely useful. We've seen a lot of time institutions and especially BSA teams are spending close to 4 hours in generating a SAR report. That is gathering all the evidence, writing the SAR narrative, reviewing it, and then submitting it with FinCEN. FiVerity is a BSA filer, so you can use us or any other existing system that you've been using for e-filing it. But where we really have shown impact and value is the ability to generate these narratives based on the context that you already have and based on the ability of the data that the tool is able to access given its integrations. So I'm going to quickly show you what that looks like in real time, if I can. Just make sure that everything is working. So this is a suspicious activity report form that I've already opened, and I am going to now generate a narrative based on a sample transaction record. So I'm setting this up as a CSV, but again, like I said earlier, it can be connected on the backend with your existing database, and you can use that for further evaluation. Let me actually do this another way. Let me stop sharing for a bit, and while I do that, Ashok, if there's anything else you want to add, please feel free to do that.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that the main piece here, obviously, we're throwing a lot at you as far as all of the capabilities that you can use. It's worth calling out that the platform is modular, so it is based off of what your needs are, what your use cases are, the size of your institution. So if it's just trying to understand threat intelligence from across the community, you can subscribe just to the threat intelligence. If you are looking to go all the way through to having to use us as a BSA e-filer and to generate your SAR narrative drafts, we can do that as well. So there's a lot of different use cases and capabilities that are derived from the shared intelligence. But the main piece here that we're trying to highlight is really how we're able to do it in real time without manual effort, and how we're able to then use that within actual workflows that your teams work in today to have an impact. So I think that's the main piece that you're hitting on here.
Yep, sounds good. And let me just bring that back up here real quick. Okay, so for this case, I've already uploaded or added a sample transaction.csv, and what it really does is it covers your, it shows your sample transactions. So sender account, a counterparty, and the amount that was exchanged. So, and if I were to quickly share what those transactions look like, I can bring that up as well. Just give me 1 second. There we go. All right. Okay. All right. So this is what I wanted to quickly show everyone. So here you are, your transaction dates, transaction types, and then transaction amount, sender names, and then receiving parties, and then some counterparty as well. The description is optional if there is available in the database or in the file system that that our system talks to. If not, that's fine too. It's going to infer based on the other data elements that it has access. And now from here, if I go back to my demo and I would want to show what the actual output looks like. Let me just quickly bring that up. And if I do upload and generate narrative, and what it's going to do is it's going to look at all of those transactions and evaluate in the context of the existing case. So it's going to look at all of the transactions, the typologies that was identified, and then based off all of that context and data that's available, it's going to generate a SAR narrative for you. And most of the time, where investigators spend in collecting that evidence, putting together narrative, in this case, the system is able to do that for you. And the only thing that that is expected of a BSA analysts and investigators here is the ability to review it and confirm that any of these accounts that have been identified as risky are the way they are, and then if you have to add any more evidence, you can do that. And it typically takes a few seconds to generate, and so we'll wait here. And while it does, I'm going to quickly go back and show all of this case evidences and case logs that we have generated. It is able to then roll up itself into different insights, and what your investigators and fraud managers can see are these different intelligence typologies trending over time, different emerging threats across different regions, across different communities. And it is also displaying some of the metrics that are available to you. So operational metrics looking at overall throughput of triage, efficiency on investigations, and overall intelligence utilization. In cases where there are, we've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So in M&A activity, you're able to also extend out the technology to an incoming institution or emerging institution to do a side-by-side evaluation of what these fraud typologies might be, where is typology volume or differences in typologies, and if there is any convergence or divergence of the risk profile. And let me go back and see. It's taking longer than it usually does, so we'll come back to this if it does. If not, I can also send this as a quick screenshot of the recording. But in a nutshell, this is what the system is designed to do. Each step again is supported with relevant context, and what we have shown here, or what we intend to show here, at least on the SAR narrative side, was how intelligence moves from being something that you look up to something that is actively driving triage, investigations, and decisions. And ultimately, the teams are moving away from just managing alerts, but to understanding and acting on these fraud patterns that the system surfaces. All right. Jacques, you're on mute.
Thank you. I was just saying it. It wouldn't be a live demo if there wasn't a glitch somewhere in the.
Yep.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah. So with that, and I'll try to just take over here. If you can see my screen again. Just to reiterate what we've covered, just how this enables a different way of operating than teams typically do today. Now, given this shared intelligence layer across both internal and partner teams, identifying coordinated activity earlier before it scales, and reducing that manual effort that is required to investigate and action on the information that's found. So you're able to do all of that within a single platform. You can have multiple hubs access. So as Nalab mentioned, you can be a member of the Association of Vermont Credit Unions hub or network, and you can also set up your own private network for any other partners that you wish to collaborate with. So this ultimately means that you're not just reacting faster, but you're actually getting ahead of some of the problems that are being seen. So as far as the partnership with the AVCU and the intelligence network we've set up, is really about bringing your membership together. It's not traditional information sharing. It's meant to be different. It's meant to be more impactful, and it's meant to be real time and continuous. So I think before we go in Q&A, any last points that you want to call out, Nalab? I don't know if you're on mute or I just can't see you.
Yeah, I'm on mute. Yeah, absolutely. And from a starting point perspective, this is designed to be a lightweight integration. We don't expect any disruption to your existing systems, and then we will start with a set of focus workflows, focus use case, and then show value quickly on that workflow use case, and then expand from there. The SAR narrative not being able to generate on the call on live is not. Is one of the examples that if you aren't able to show that as a value, but we start from there and then we expand out into any existing use case, any access to many other data sources, as we have noticed with our existing customers, where they start with one use case and then quickly find value, and it's most of a sort of a self-realization from customers. They think, oh, if you can connect here, can you connect to a core banking system? Can you also connect to our LOS platform on the back end and then do the same thing there? So that becomes much more of an extensible and a mutual growth from a partnership perspective.
Yeah, and from a time to value standpoint, with that lightweight integration and sort of that crawl, walk, run approach, we typically see customers up and running and having that shared intelligence in the matter of weeks. It's just about several man hours. It's not months or years away as some other integrations or solutions may take. Sits on top of your existing systems within your environments. It does not need to replace anything unless you want to, and it checks the box there. So yeah, with that, want to open it up to any questions that may have come up along the way. And otherwise, we will look to schedule any sort of one-on-one conversations if there's additional detail or use cases that anyone wants to dive into.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Did anybody have any questions for the fellas?
Yeah, and if anybody had any questions on what happened with the SAR narrative, it just got published or finished generating. So if there are any questions there, we can also share our screen back and show what it looks like.
So I think likely the next steps, we will share today's recording. I know we had some people that weren't able to join us, and also do some follow-up to see what next steps and level of interest. But we certainly appreciate everybody's time and you all sharing this incredible opportunity to do some fraud prevention and collaboration. So thank you so much, and we appreciate everyone joining us this morning.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Carrie. Thank you, Will.